True horror stories. File number 3. What you're about to hear was reported as real.
Several well-documented cases involve nurses who killed or harmed patients in their care. For example, Kristen Gilbert, convicted for injecting patients with epinephrine at a VA hospital in the 1990s. Janine Jones, a Texas nurse convicted in the 1980s for killing infants. Beverly Allett, a pediatric nurse in England, convicted in 1991 of murdering and harming children. And Lucy Letby, a UK nurse convicted in 2023 of murdering babies in a neonatal ward. These cases are recorded in court documents and major news and medical reports. This story is inspired by those reported cases. Listen, close your door if you must, but don't let the idea of care make you soft. Hospitals are supposed to be rooms that steady a shaking world. Sometimes someone builds danger into the steadiness. He used to say nurses are the quiet keepers of a house's last chances. The one I want you to meet is Mara, a nurse who learned the map of a ward like a thief learns the back alleys of a town. She knew which monitors flickered when the oxygen dipped, which IV stands could be nudged so a drip would slow, which families stayed awake and which slept with their noses pressed into the pillows. She kept her hands steady, her voice low. She smiled at doctors and at relatives and at the patients whose names she said like a prayer. The first mistake was not a decision. It was a mercy that slid into something else. A toddler's heart fluttered in a rhythm the machines hated. The doctor was late by a coffee. The family wept in a cramped chair. Mara can't say she didn't think of running. She told herself she did it to end pain. A syringe into a line, a pressure change the monitors caught as a hiccup. The room stopped. The hush felt wrong, then permissible. After that night, she began to keep things. Not photos, not jewelry. Small paper lists folded into the spine of her handbook. Names, dates, which shift, a notation for who had been hard on her, who laughed at her with a man's voice. The list grew like a bruise you keep touching to see if it's still there. In the nights that followed, she learned how to make a death look ordinary, a heart that simply would not restart, an infection that swallowed a bed like fog. People called some deaths unexplained. Mara called them kept accounts. You think monsters make noise. Mara learned to make silence more convincing. She would call a code and run into the room like a savior, palms open, breath steady, and the applause of machines would do the rest. She liked the way doctors looked at her afterwards, gratitude and a kind of professional awe, and thought maybe that would fix what had started. But lists are gossip in paper form. A nurse noticed patterns. A mother noticed that the same face lingered in the doorway when her child's temperature spiked. Small things, a medication tray with one ampule missing, a shift log with an erased time. No one wanted to be the one to accuse the person who soothed their dying aunt. Hospitals trade trust like oxygen. You breathe it without thinking. Then a trainee stayed late. He thought he'd found a way to help. A camera pointed in a hall where cameras aren't meant to be. He wanted proof for an audit, not a confession. The footage showed her moving through rooms with a purpose that looked like routine, but ended in places where monitors never recorded what she did. He played the clip until the light went gray and sent it to a friend who showed it to a supervisor. The supervisor's face folded like a map being closed. Once the hospital opened the door, the world moved quickly. Detectives came. Grand juries sat in rooms with bad coffee. The list that had been folded into a handbook unfolded across investigators' tables and became evidence. Families read names that matched hospital records and felt an old enemy named at last. Mara sat in steel and did not shout. You will listen for a long time to explanations. Mental illness, thrill, vengeance, all of them tell a part of the story. But what stays with you is the small cruelty. A person in a uniform. The hands that should have steadied a dying breath, instead making sure it came sooner. When you next hear the steady, tired voice of someone checking your name, you might think of how much power a quiet person can hold, and how afraid the world should be when that power goes wrong.
If this story stayed with you, don't rush back to the light just yet. These files are both from real events, old records, and careful storytelling. I put a lot of time into shaping the atmosphere you just hear. If you enjoy this kind of quiet, realistic horror, consider subscribing to True Horror Files Stories. Leave a comment if it affected you. And if you have a true story you never told anyone, you can share it in the comments. Next file will be waiting.